Do you read me?
Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Com Tower. This is Pacho. Do you read me?
Pacho, this is Com Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Com Tower, Com Tower. Request permission to launch and commence the field op. Over.
Stand by. Pacho, permission granted. I say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah! Get some, hurrah. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Pacho. It's another, Baby Friday is here, or Friday Night's Eve, but goddamn, it's almost the weekend, everybody. Welcome to another great show. Let's get all the pleasantries out of the way. Hey, this show is brought to you by, yours truly. I mean, I don't. What I like to do is I like to help folks out, putting some very specific financial strategies together, whether you're still in the service, getting ready to transition, or you're already a veteran. What we do here is basically help you get ready to tackle the intricacies, is that the word, of civilian life. How to navigate through your finances. What's the best thing? VGLI, SGLI, what type of protection my family needs. What type of financial strategies I need to put together so I'm able to have some for retirement and work with my civilian job, among other things, to really have that pot of money at the end of the rainbow. Because, while we all want to retire and not do anything, retirement is not an age figure or number. It's actually a financial figure. So are you ready to do that? And how far off are you from that goal? 10%, 20%, whatever the case may be. So what I do is I work with folks to be able to achieve those financial goals, so you can not have to worry later on and be able to help your family and maybe leave a legacy behind that your kids, when they pass by your picture, they're like, "What's up, pops? Thanks for helping us out and helping our your grandkids out too." So if this makes sense, let's have a quick conversation. It's really easy. You can shoot me a DM at the show, and we can go from there. Again, no commitment, no pressure, no nothing. Just good talk and good information. Also, I help folks out with their VA claims and benefits. So if this is something that you want to get, if you haven't put in for a VA claim, or you're thinking of upping your disability rating, give me a call. I can help you with that as well, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And I know there's a lot of companies out there, claim sharks, that you got to pay them a couple of $1,000s and all that stuff. I mean, you don't want to go that route. So it's better to go with somebody that knows the system, who has helped other folks, and that is not going to charge you an arm and a leg. Maybe listen to and have a good conversation on how you can invest that money much better once you start receiving it. Just throwing it out there. And don't forget to, reapply and then keep applying, among other things, and educate yourselves, because the PAC Act and the VA, I mean, they're doing good things. The system is not perfect by no means. And next week, when I have a guest, just kind of dropping a little hint, we'll be talking about some things and how the system has gotten better, but we know we can improve it. So let's go ahead and reapply and see where it can get you. Okay. And look, this show is all. I'm the one who mans this show. I'm the thank the folks at Sitch Radio have allowed me to use their platform, but Brian is very busy, so again, I'm the one who does all the marketing, all that stuff. So why don't you help me out with pumping up the analytics on my other media channels? Because on Facebook, I have about 7,000 of you following me, which I really appreciate. About if you guys go on my YouTube channel, as well as on TikTok and on Instagram, give me a like, subscribe, and follow, just so I can help. It'll help me with the analytics. All right. And look, if you want to support your local podcaster and listen to some other shows, maybe this show is not for you. I highly recommend you go to sitchradio.com and listen to something from there. They got an array of shows that will tickle your fancy just about everything. And if you want to get into the podcasting game, or you need some coaching, how to get your brand out there and what to do with your next move after the military, Brian Colburn is the man to talk to. He'll get you there. All right. But this show is all about the right to bear arms, freedom, the right to free speech, among other things. So if this is what you like, then like, subscribe, and follow. If not, then listen to something else, again, from our partners here in our studio. All right. So I think that's pretty much all the pleasantries. And yeah, why don't we get started with the show? So I've been working here at our office space here that we all share. And one of the favorite things that I've gotten, and by the way, being originally born in Colombia, among other things, although I like to consider myself a coffee connoisseur, there's a lot of things I learned over the years that although I'm not Juan Valdez and I'll never claim to be him, and yes, in Colombia we do drink a lot of coffee. We are not, coffee did not originate from a lot of people. For some reason, a lot of people tend to think that coffee originated there, and by no means it did that. But as I was grabbing I don't want to give them any unnecessary advertisement, because if I do, then please, hook your brother up. But as I was picking up one of these cups from a very famous coffee place that rhymes with fucks, it just got me like, man, I do drink a lot of these things. Well, I drink every day. I mean, I drink one during the day. I mean, I just go buy one, not every day, but pretty often. And I was like, man, where would we be in the service if we didn't have one of? As a matter, let me take a sip. That shit is good. But what would we be without one of them bad boys? You know what I'm saying? So this isn't just coffee. I mean, it's an entire career flashback in a cup. You know what I'm saying? So today's show, we're going to honor this bitter, beautiful brew that, got us through good times, bad times, bad orders, bad days. So, hey, let's raise our mugs and let's talk a little bit about coffee. All right. So where did this thing come from? And I got a pretty cool story that goes along with that. But as I was doing some research, it actually the legend of Kaldi and the goat herder. So hey, some of you out there, don't get excited about goats. I know some of you deranged, especially my fellow jarheads. I know how you guys can get. Okay, but around the 9th century in Utopia, Kaldi, he was a goat herder. He noticed his goats were acting weird after eating these berries from a certain type of bush. This is again in Ethiopia. So the monks in that area started using the berries to stay awake during prayers, and just like that, the grind of coffee basically began. So those of us who were born and raised Catholic, I don't know, about the other religions, but I could tell you this, that when you do during Lent and all these other traditions that we used to do, 1,000 amens and Jesus, and doing the rosary, I could tell you that yes, I mean, coffee would have been, I was a kid back then, but coffee would have been much more necessary. So it spread through the Middle East, Europe, and eventually into the New World. Obviously, coffee houses became centers of discussion and revolution because, people were all hooked up on caffeine. So I mean, literally this magical drink right here, this magical, fuck it, where it's from. This thing right here literally fueled movements, and it tied to the military. I mean, by the 1800s, coffee was a staple in soldier rations, basically around the world. Now, a quick story. Again, I'm very proud of my heritage. Where I was born and raised in Latin America, in Colombia, and yeah, we drink coffee over there like it's cool. However, it's not how can I put it? Gunny's brew, turpentine, the stuff that, you know, takes paint off the walls. No, it's very mild, very tasteful, so to speak. That's the type of coffee that we like over there. Yeah, there are some people that like it really bitter and stuff. But anyways, back in 2018, the wife and I, we were in Colombia, and we actually took a coffee tour, and we met this gentleman by the name of Juan Diego. Juan Diego is a professional coffee grower, and so much so that there's a lot of competitions. And yes, they're in Ethiopia and in the Middle East. My man, had won a lot of competitions, and his coffee is renowned and one of the best around the world. Anyways, and as a historian himself, he said, "Hey, look, coffee does not originate from Colombia, and it is not a native plant to this region. It thrives in a lot of areas of Colombia. The climate and the environment is very conducive to grow that plant," which was shock to me, because I was like, "What?" My kids call me like if you ever watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding, my kids compare me to that dad without putting my hand on Windex or anything weird like that. Anyway, so yeah, coffee. It was actually brought there by the Ethiopians even prior to Christopher Columbus showing up in that area. Which again, I mean, I was learning a lot of stuff. I mean, the guy knew a lot of stuff, so much so that he every bit of piece of that coffee and everything he was using, the husk, the pulp, everything was absolutely being used, and he was making energy drinks and all kinds of stuff. Very cool stuff. So, how did coffee and the military began its beautiful love story? I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, it was actually started being put in Civil War rations. They included green coffee beans. Soldiers had to roast them themselves. Now, there's two ways when you're doing coffee. Again, although I'm not Juan Valdez, as a kid growing up in a farm in Colombia, uh, that was one of the plants that we grew and cultivated in the land among cattle. So, but yeah, you put it through this thing, and this machine, and it peels the pulp off of it, and then you put the seed, what's left, you put it out in the air and to air dry, or in the sun, and then you gotta flip it over, and then after it's all that done, then you roast it, right? So during World Wars, troops actually received instant coffee in their kits. So our mission, it became a badge of bitter honor, no pun intended. But in Vietnam, it was even included in the coffee in the sea rations. Coffee instant type one. It was actually what it was known. I mean, I've seen Vietnam style can openers, and yeah, you still had the John Wayne can openers. So even in modern day MREs, I mean, it's still included in instant packs with gum and tissues in the little white clear packs. So it just, if it didn't taste like battery acid and gasoline, it wasn't even real coffee. I mean, heck, I remember some of the guys, because I mean, one of the things that, I mean, I've it's been so many years since the last time I did something, nicotine or any of that stuff, dip, chew. But I mean, a lot of us would even put coffee grinds in our, like it was chew right here, just to get through, just to absorb it that much quicker. And if and obviously if you didn't have any Copenhagen or anything of the sort, tobacco back then, we used it as all that stuff. So, I mean, and I mean, even in the, in the motor pool and just brewing coffee, I mean, it just becomes like this. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So, how do we brew, when we're out in the field? I mean, a lot of us have to, if you got to pull fire watch, um, or if you got to go, radio watch, if you have to, be at the CP, OOD, whatever. I mean, it's just, you know, you need coffee. I mean, that is, it's all about that. God forbid you run out, or the whole saying of, if you make the last cup, you'll make some mo, right? Or if you drink the last cup of Joe, you'll make some mo. I mean, that's just, I mean, people get shot for that kind of stuff if you if you didn't do those type of things, right? Um, and I mean, man, this it's just this thing. It got us through anything and everything. Just, man, it just, where would we be without this freaking magical juice? You know what I'm saying? Uh, and yeah, I mean, I haven't seen people do this, but I've heard of people actually using, and even poor families using a sock as a filter to make coffee, and then keeping the grinds for the next day. I have heard and of families that actually, even in Colombia, that have done that because they didn't have a percolator, an actual percolating coffee maker. Okay, uh, and then here, with chem lights or MRE, you know, it's just that canteen cup is just becomes so much more than just drinking coffee, I mean, among many things. But it just, there's nothing more cool than, just those times when we will go to the field or whatever, and you just break out that metal clinky canteen cup, and then just walk up to the chow hall or walk up anywhere, with this thing, and then just pour a nice cup of hot coffee with that thing, and then just start talking with your buddies. If you were miserable and you were just bullshitting about things going, if you were deployed, you were just talking about things back home, who how you got dumped, or or just hash out your problems, or just bullshit, and just kind of that warm fuzzy feeling inside of you. You know what I'm saying? It's just so many good things. The motor, I mean, and talk about the motor pool, as I mentioned earlier. That motor pool espresso, or that or that drip of oil that Gunny likes to drink. Man, what was his name? Master Harm Russell, or Gunny Russell, when he first came onto the motor pool. I mean, and this dude was a genius, and way ahead of his time. This is when I first came back into the Marine Corps. As most of you know, I'm what they call a retread, or a PSEPper. So when I came back in, I ended up at truck company in 1st Marine Division, right there at Camp Pogas. Anyways, so I had Masson Russell, and this dude, I mean, was ahead of his time. I mean, back then, when we had the white computers, if you guys remember those, we used to do a lot of things, computer wise, that we couldn't do back then. That we couldn't do, that we could do now, but it was like historic back then, if that makes sense. Anyways, but this dude used to make this coffee that, I mean, it would actually drill a hole in your stomach liner. I mean, it was that bad. So, but you know what? After a while, I guess your body gets used to it, and it was good to go. But if you didn't, if you didn't replenish what he made, or you better go ask, when Masson, hey Masson, how many of these things do I got to put, of this Maxwell House do I got to put in here? Because it was one of them big ass can. Remember them? It's this huge, metal can of Maxwell House that they would sell at Surf Mart, or or it had the coffee, the coffee donation pot. Anyways, I mean, it was like 5 or 6 of those things, scoops into the percolating machine just to make his coffee. So, just some of the crazy routines that we have when we're in the service, right? And obviously, if you happen to have, one of those MREs that brings a little bit of a pastry treat, like cherry pound cake, and then having that amazing gunny brew type of coffee, oh man, forget it. That's a good time in itself. Personally, I used to love the vanilla pound cake with peanut butter spread on the top with coffee. I mean, that was money. Or whoever made Ranger pudding, which you grab, creamer. You grab a bunch of creamers. You grab, I think it's the hot cocoa. Put a little bit of water and sugar, and then you mix it all. And then to give it that little bit of kick, you put a couple of packets of coffee. That was another amazing treat right there when we're in the field. So, but really, I mean, so and then as we get older in the service, I remember adding, you become kind of like this coffee, beef coffee snub sort of thing, and now I drink cortados, right? Cortaditos, or which is basically a cut. Cortado is to cut. So basically, this is just 3 shots of coffee cut with some milk. I prefer almond milk because I guess I'm finicky like that. But man, when you sip one of these, it's amazing. So in the mornings, I'll tell you my routine. Look, in the mornings, I just grab 1 cup of coffee, and not to get too personal or graphic, um, I'm here to tell you that maybe by the second or third sip, it's like it's time to go. I mean, it's like I got a beeline to go to the head and make stuff happen, right? But after that 1 cup, I'll have my breakfast, and then with my breakfast, I will have a Colombian style coffee. Which, by the way, shout out to my wife, the trophy, because my wife, I think she must have been Colombian in another lifetime, because I mean she can make that very light taste Colombian style coffee. So I have that with my breakfast, and I'm pretty much done. Lately, as I've been, as most of I help people into finances. I I find myself working a lot out of Starbucks just to meet people and talk to people. And I find myself drinking a lot of these cortados, right? Oh shit, I said the name of the place. Anyways, yeah. So I drink, I work out a lot out of just to talk to people. I mean, sometimes I bring my lunch and everything else, but it's just like, man, it feels real good drinking one of these bad boys. You know what I'm saying? So, and veterans, and there's a lot of great veteran-owned companies like uh, Black Rifle. Is one of them. I think there's another company called Liquid Death or something like that. There's one that's got a skull on it. Oh man, I had it about 3 months ago. I forgot the name of the company, but let's invest in companies that are veteran owned. Let's help our own, right? But a huge shout out to my favorite local shops and veteran run roasters. And those crazy names. I mean, who would have thought Black Rifle would have taken off? And I mean, which, by the way, I've had their coffee, and it's an amazing brand as well. So, but we used, I mean, as I think about it, it's like, man, I used to sweat freaking caffeine, uh, you know, but now, I mean, when the whole hoorah gets on the banter and the formations and the barracks field day and all that stuff is gone. Um, I just kind of, and again, I as I was picking up this thing uh, earlier today, I find myself just kind of reminiscing on my career and just, all the buddies that I talked to, and all the time sitting around, a fire out in the field, and just kind of bullshitting or waiting for that, that little fire that we, or with a little stove, a field stove, and waiting for my canteen cup water to boil so I could have just a hot cup of coffee. So, you know, now we just use, coffee as kind of like a mental armor. I mean, it does help us stay focused, sharp, and even stay awake. Now, I don't want to banter against energy drinks and all those other things. I mean, most of the time, I mean, I take my coffee black now without sugar, because as I get older, I mean, we got to worry about shit like triglycerides and lipids and blah, blah, blah. So I try to stay away from those. I could hear my wife right now laughing and rolling her eyes at me because I do have a sweet tooth that I need to watch, right? But it just wasn't about the caffeine. It was about the ritual, hanging out, bullshitting, getting together with your buddies, just dragging your ass from your sleeping bag and from your hooch, to the chow truck, and just trying to stay warm, and having that first, that first drop of coffee just hit your lips, right? Like the movie Old School. So, but the conversations that used to happen over coffee, inside the tent, inside the trucks, inside in the chow hall line, and all those things. I mean, those are the things and the times that I miss. The camaraderie, the just bullshitting as a whole. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those are the things that as we get in life, and during our transition process uh, to civilian, those are the things that we don't think about, but we find sometimes our ourselves longer. Because I'm here to tell you, if you're still in, although you may be dealing with the colonel's deadline, your OIC, whatever, doesn't really matter. I mean, believe you me, those times are much simpler than when you're out in the private sector, and you're gonna miss them. So I'm just saying that, uh, all in all, that cup of coffee, it will start your day and give you that structure and familiarity. I mean, to some degree it does now, but in a much different sense. You know what I'm saying? So, just think about those things. Just kind of look back at your career, and then think about the times of how many times when you're out in the field, you were just kind of when, oh man, I hope that the coffee is already done and brew, instead of having to wait around when you were freezing your ass off out in 29 Palms at Camp Wilson, or in the middle of one of those one of the field ops in the middle of freaking nowhere, and you're like just cold and miserable, because you know how we love cold and miserable, right? uh, but seriously, I mean, think about this. I mean, in a world full of chaos, fucking deadlines, and dumbass orders, this thing right here, coffee has never let us down. You know what I'm saying? So, here's a salute to the veterans, the roasters, the coffee lovers, and yes, even the Starbucks employees uh, on the 6 a.m. shift, we got to salute them motherfuckers, because I mean, we throw a lot of money. Imagine, and no, this is something, as a financial person, we always say, man, how many cup of coffees, blah blah blah. Do you buy a month? But it's just, you're paying for that convenience. You're paying for an amazing cup of coffee. Am I right, or am I wrong? So whether you're brewing it out in a foxhole, sipping it in a suit, coffee still has your six. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a good place to stop, everybody. Hey, I just want to say, I love what I do. I love doing this podcast. Again, I don't make a dime from it. So if you think out there, man, this dude, I don't. I just do it because I love it, and it's as Aaron Seaver would say, by me being here, sharing my story, my heartaches, my whatever with you, that's therapy to me. So yes, I mean, and it's the truth. So hey, thanks so much for helping me out. I had some really great news. Somebody called me today. My next guest next week is going to be an amazing individual, former SEAL, and everything else. Nonetheless, his person said, "Hey, you know what? Your show is actually one of the top ones when you research veterans and veteran information. Your show is one of the ones up there." So I just want to say, hey, from from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you for all these years, You guys help, supporting the show, putting your amazing comments. People like Angel, Mad Max, Brian, Alberto Sanchez, my wife, and my sister, who is now a show lover and huge supporter out in California. I just want to say, and everybody else over here, whether you're listening to here in Conus or out in Okinawa, Japan, which the analytics do show that a lot of people listen to it over there. I just want to, thank you so much, because that made me feel really, really, really good, knowing that, hey, the show is out there and you guys are pumping it out and spreading the good word. So, if you've been, before I go, like I always say, if you've been ruminating and you're going into a dark place, and you feel like you can't get out of that hole, I'm here to tell you, look, tough times don't last, but tough guys and gals do. So don't do anything that there's no coming back from, like taking your life. Don't do anything that is going to leave us holding that bag and asking a lot of questions of how we could have helped you. I'm telling you, times may be shitty. It may be a couple of months. It may be even a year. But I promise you that the time does pass. So reach out to somebody. You can reach out to me in the show. There's other resources like TRICARE, Military One Source, VA, Suicide Hotline. Just so many things out there, everybody, for you to get better and get help. And if you haven't heard from a buddy, do a buddy check this weekend. Okay. So with that being said, everybody, I just want to say thank you once again. Tomas, Daisuke. I'll see you next week, everybody. Ara, get some.